Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have full review of the Motorola Moto G84 5G. Let's get started. This device is part of the mid-range as the entire Moto G series, so I invite you to also go and meet other members because Motorola has a very strange nomenclature. That is, this Moto G84 is not much above the Moto G5 and 4, although the numerical difference in the name seems very high. Its launch price in Mexico is 5,999 pesos. This is about $350, and I sincerely consider that Motorola lately has managed a much better pricing policy compared against what we saw in previous years or even in previous months. This at least referring to access to prices in Mexico. I don't know how it is in other places because remember that the prices here are not the same as there. But from my point of view, this device can compete very well against other devices. So join me to get to know it completely. On the front, we will find a device with a very good use of the front thanks to the incorporation of considerably reduced bezels. Even the bottom bezel is very thin compared against what other devices and its main competitor Samsung offer. The drawback here is that it does not offer special protection such as Gorilla Glass here on the front. On the right side, we have power button and volume buttons. Above is placed a microphone and Dolby Atmos text. While on the left side is the tray to place the nano SIM card and also the microSD card. Below is placed the headphone jack along with another microphone, also the USB-C port and the main speaker. This is a 7.6mm thick device, so it's very thin and it's also very light, having a weight of only 168 grams. So really these are among its strongest points because despite not having a curved back cover, it's quite comfortable because it's not heavy. The back cover is made of synthetic leather in some colors, although it is also available with an acrylic back cover which is lighter. This is the first device in the Moto G series to incorporate the collaboration with Pantone, so the shade of this back cover is Viva Magenta, which is the official color of this 2023, giving it a really very nice touch. So aesthetically it looks like a much more expensive device, and even to the touch as well, thanks to the incorporation of this synthetic leather, it remains a soft touch. It's also available in Midnight Blue and Marshmallow Blue. And regarding some special resistance, it has IP5 and 4 certification, which ensures that it can withstand some splashes and also some dust, but it can't be submerged. Although at this price point, it is still not a common thing to see water-resistant devices, so I think we could still consider it to be within what we expect. The screen is 6.5 inches. For many, it could be considered a slightly compact screen, although a few years ago this was already a very large screen. It has a standard aspect ratio and a full HD plus resolution, so it also gives us a good pixel density. We have very detailed images, both in multimedia content and also in text. We will really have a considerably sharp experience, but the most positive thing is that it is a POLED screen. This means that it gives us very intense colors and very high contrast, and it also supports a large color palette as it has a 10-bit depth. Therefore, in images with gradients such as landscapes and the like, it will give us a completely good viewing experience. Although a small detail is that it does not support HDR content, but really in this price range, I think no screen is going to support it, and it does offer us an excellent viewing experience. In fact, the brightness is one of its plus points because it can go up to 1300 nits at its maximum peak, giving us an excellent outdoor viewing experience. The minimum brightness can also become comfortable to use at night, and I forgot to tell you that it does have good viewing angles. So even if you view the content from the side, you can still maintain a good view. And another important point is that it offers us a screen with 120 Hz in its refresh rate, so it also offers us very fluid movements, and it does have an automatic adjustment to switch between 60 and 120 to save a little bit of battery. You could also manually set it to 60 if you prefer, but it really does give us the feeling of a modern device with all these fluid movements. And in addition to the nightlight mode, it offers us 2 different color calibrations depending on our taste, but obviously the most used will be the saturated color setting. It really seems to me a very good screen that for this price will be difficult to match. In sound, it will also be an excellent device that has 2 speakers. The main one is located at the bottom and the secondary one is right in the earpiece area for calls. I can really tell you that it is a very loud sounding device. The bottom speaker has more presence of bass frequencies, so it is not a sound that we could consider symmetrical, but it offers good quality with good power and virtually no distortion. But what do you think if we listen to a small test? Remember though, it's not the same as listening to it live. The stereo sound by itself is already a very strong point of this device, but also Motorola complements it very well thanks to the fact that it does have Dolby Atmos certification, which not only stays at the hardware level but also in software they offer us several added options. We have different sound style presets, and in the custom setting we can also access a 10-band equalizer. In this case, my favorite setting is to turn up the first 3 bass bands, and it was the setting with which you heard the example sound. But you can also select a bright treble setting, vocal enhancement, or customize specifically how you want this sound. Also, it does have a headphone jack, so you can use wired headphones, but if you prefer to use wireless headphones, I also have very good news, as this device supports not only the usual codecs, SBC and IAC, but also aptX adaptive and LHDC. So you really can get to enjoy a high-resolution sound experience even without the need for wired headphones. Below, you will hear an audio test recorded with these microphones.
Esta es una prueba grabada con el Motorola Moto G84 utilizando sus micrófonos para comprobar la calidad de ellos.
As you can see, not only do we have good quality speakers, but also good quality microphones. The front camera is 16 megapixels with f2.45 aperture and fixed focus. This lens doesn't offer as much light input, but because it has 16 megapixels, Motorola will automatically merge those pixels in difficult lighting conditions, and photos will come out 4 megapixels in those scenarios. Although through the settings, you could also choose what you want all 16 megapixel photos, but it's not recommended. Motorola has a quick launch mode by turning the phone twice to access the camera, and you can also rotate to the front camera by doing the same gesture. The front camera doesn't offer ultra-fast capture, but I think it's fast enough. It has 2 settings of amplitude, and if we hold down the shutter, it does have a burst with low speed. In the bottom right corner, you will also see placed a button for beauty options, which are many, and a button will also be placed to access the filters that we can preview in real time. At the top, you also have a button to select 2 different color settings. If you want more saturated colors, you can select the automatic enhancement mode, but in my case, I prefer the natural setting, and that's the one I tested the whole camera with. In the settings, we are also going to find the option to enable the palm gesture, which will allow us a much easier capture when the shutter is difficult to reach. As I indicated, the photos will mostly be 4 megapixels, so we don't really have as much detail as we would like. If you zoom in, you're going to realize what I'm saying. Colors look good enough to me, nothing too remarkable. The equipment has fixed focus, but fortunately, even if you're close, I think you come out in good focus. And if you have your arm stretched to the max, it also still retains good focus. The detail I notice is that even enabling the 16 megapixel mode, a 4 megapixel photo still appears. So in reality, the selfies are definitely very poorly detailed. But if your priority is not very detailed photos, the truth is that the fact of merging the pixels helps you that even in this type of scenes where the lighting is too low, we have a positive result. I must tell you that in this case, the test was a little darker than I usually test with all other devices. In backlit scenes, you notice how the preview is not optimized, but after processing the photograph, I think the result is very positive. I do not see any overexposed area, even though the colors are not exaggeratedly accurate. And obviously, having a fixed focus, it gives priority to focus the rest a little out of focus. So, not amazing selfies, but at least in backlight it performs well. At night, if you're in front of a light source, you'll get a positive result, although there's more graininess, and again we noticed a low level of detail, but I honestly like the result. Even in more complex situations, we have a good night photography result, again thanks to the pixel fusion. And if you use the screen as a flash simulation, you can improve the result, although the color balance could be affected because the screen has a very cold illumination. This front camera does have a portrait photography mode, which even at night seems to me to perform well. And in the daytime, we will also find good edge detection on faces and body, but it is not capable of detecting objects. Therefore, it is recommended that you do not take pictures of yourself with objects so that the result is much more natural. The bokeh effect is simple. On the back, we have the main camera of about 24mm with 50 megapixels and f1.88 aperture, autofocus and optical stabilization. The specifications of that main camera are very good, but also the additional camera is functional, as it is an ultra-wide camera of about 13mm approximately, with 8 megapixels and f2.2 aperture. But the good thing about this camera is that it also has autofocus, and therefore it also works for macro photography. To test the capture speed, I will try to capture number 1 at this point. I will do a second test to be absolutely sure. I think it is not the fastest device in response, as in both attempts I noticed that it captured slightly after the time I instructed it to. Fortunately, it also has a burst, although as you may notice it takes a bit of time to respond and it's not the fastest burst we've seen. There is no doubt that a point of improvement for Motorola will be to give users a faster capture and a burst with a faster response speed, so it will be easier to capture the exact moment. In the main camera interface, we also have access to all the color filters that I had already shown you previously. If we tap on screen, we can adjust the focus or exposure, and we also have access to the Pro mode, which does allow us to take pictures in RAW for more advanced post-development or even combine RAW with JPG. It gives us access to very good manual settings, including a shutter speed of up to 16 seconds and an ISO of up to 3200. So there is no doubt that this is a considerably advanced Pro mode, which in this price range is rare to find.
In automatic mode, we will not find any function to scan documents, but fortunately it does bring a special mode to do this action and automatically trim all the edges of the sheet. Also remember that by clicking the share button and then print, you can also export it as PDF. Fortunately, QR codes do scan directly from the main interface of the application.
Photos with movements come out considerably well, although obviously it will not be free of some blurred area, but overall I think the result is positive. The main camera offers us a 50 megapixel mode to enjoy a higher level of detail, and it seems that it does get to take advantage of the full resolution of this sensor so that you can make cuts or zoom back to notice more detail in the photograph, and the quality is very good. But in automatic mode, the photographs will be 13 megapixels, as with all mobile devices, and it seems to me that in outdoor conditions we do not have the best results. Perhaps too much light can cost you a little, the colors are not very accurate, nor is the focus so precise, so I honestly did not like the camera. The ultra-wide camera in this type of conditions, you will also notice that it has a little strange colors. We also noticed chromatic aberration, so it is a simple camera quality. In backlight, the preview doesn't look optimized either, but I think that after processing we will have a good balance of light and shadow, although again the colors don't look very accurate to me. The ultra-wide camera has a very similar performance in this kind of backlight conditions, but it confirms that it has a very low level of detail, so it is not very recommendable to take pictures with this lens. Indoors, the main camera I think manages to recover colors very well with good saturation despite not having so much illumination. In fact, we have an excellent level of detail as well. The ultra-wide camera suffers too much in this type of conditions, especially with respect to its focus, which is not able to adjust in a good way. Therefore, the pictures are still of low quality with this lens. At night, the main camera has an excellent performance. Even without the night vision mode, we see good colors and good light balance. But with the night vision mode, it increases detail, improves light balance, and also reduces the presence of noise. So I think the night vision mode really takes night photography to a new level. The ultra-wide camera cannot be used in night vision mode, and with this it confirms that it is a lens that could be a bit underutilized due to the low quality it has. So, despite integrating an ultra-wide camera, which could be considered a strong point, it seems to be not very well used and optimized. This is a picture with the automatic mode, and it really surprises because it had very little illumination and the result is fully illuminated. And if you use the night vision mode, you will notice even more detail and better definition, although I insist that the colors are not as accurate, but in the price range I think it competes very well in night photography. The zoom of this device is just 8x, and I take advantage of the sensor information very well. I think there are other devices that will give us better photo quality. Definitely this will not be its strong point. The main camera does not allow us to get too close to objects, so you must be at a considerably far distance for it to be able to focus properly. But remember that the ultra-wide camera also has autofocus, so it would allow us to get even closer, and the level of detail captured is absolutely fine. I think this ultra-wide camera does perform well in macro conditions, unlike the other conditions where we didn't like it very much. Portrait capture I think is positive, as it is able to keep objects in focus as well as people. In addition, it has a good detection that does not generate a cloudy effect on the edges. The only thing that could perhaps be improved would be an even nicer bokeh effect. It looks slightly artificial. But in the evenings, I think this bokeh effect improves substantially, although obviously it is not able to define faces very well because it doesn't have so much illumination anymore. But it strikes me that even in night conditions, this photography, which is very complicated, managed to solve it well, at least well enough for a device of this price. For video recording, it should be noted that this device does let us record up to 60 frames per second in full HD, but only with the main camera, since the ultra-wide camera and the front camera will not be available in this configuration. I think that is also something that could be improved, although I understand that in this price range will have to be cut in some aspects. When recording video, we will be able to pause and resume our recording. We also have a button to take pictures and another button to turn on the flashlight without the need to stop our video recording. However, if we want to rotate to the front camera, we do have to stop our recording first, so there is still room for improvement there as well. During recording, we can also tap to adjust focus or exposure, but this device does not have a professional recording mode as we would find for photography. Video recording is in full HD and is what one would expect in this price range. I find that in this regard it delivers well. Intense colors, although perhaps a little inaccurate, but we could not get so demanding in a device in this range. I really think that for the price it does well with a positive recording. It does not feel that the focus is struggling too much, and even when we put an object in different positions, we will notice that the focus can react well. Although I repeat that you cannot be too close to the camera because if you are too close, it will not be able to focus. In addition, also in a little more subtle movements, the focus loses a lot of precision, so it is not a device so recommended for recording, and we also see a little aggressive changes in the white balance, therefore the video recording is simple but acceptable. The ultra-wide camera is not going to work very well for recording. You realize that even outdoors we have a strong presence of noise in some areas and it only allows us to zoom to 0x point. If we want to zoom further, we have to stop the recording and start it again. And with respect to the outdoor zoom, I think the experience is positive. Unlike the ultra-wide camera can take better advantage, although noise is still present. Indoors, we start to notice the presence of noise even in conditions where we don't see so much darkness, so it's not so positive, but at least it does maintain good color saturation. But look at the result we have recording indoors with the ultra-wide camera. It really is a disaster. It cannot adjust its focus. There is too much noise, although the only redeemable thing is the good color saturation. In a backlit scenario, it tries to record in a balanced way, but obviously it will give priority to illuminate the face as well. However, there are many overexposed areas and also other areas that look very dark. That's why it is not so recommended to record in this kind of scenarios. If you stop detecting the face, you will better balance the illuminated areas, but I insist that it is not so recommended. Recording with the ultra-wide camera is likely to have a better performance because it manages to capture many more areas, so curiously in this scenario, I like the result we have recording with this camera. At night, the main camera starts to have many problems because there is a lot of noise present, although we have a good level of detail, but I insist that the issue of noise can play a lot against it. If we have some light source, I think it manages to balance well so as not to darken the rest of the shot, and in the darker areas we will find a natural capture without so much noise. It is curious that the noise becomes more present when there is some source of illumination, so the performance could still improve. While with the ultra-wide camera, it is definitely not recommended to record in these conditions because an exaggerated noise will appear on screen. This device has a stabilization that you can disable. However, it is not recommended to disable it because you will depend only on the optical stabilization, which is good, but obviously at the time of running you will notice too much movement. On the other hand, if you enable the digital stabilization, we will have both stabilizations working hand in hand and maintains the full HD resolution, so the movements when walking are much more disguised, and even when running, although there are moments where the compensation movements are perceived, but the result is very positive. It also features a simple slow motion at over 120 frames per second in HD. It's no big deal, but it can help you with some creative shots. It also has fast motion that can go from 4 to 32x. The truth is that it is a simple fast camera because for recording landscape movements it can fall very short, but for recording people it is fine. The front camera records with good quality, although again if you have the stabilization disabled you will notice a lot of movement although it offers a much wider angle. Note that it does not have autofocus, but that is something traditional in all devices. But it is definitely recommended to record with stabilization enabled despite having a little more aggressive cropping, so you have to stretch your arm a lot, but this definitely helps if you are walking. The movement feels much more natural. Colors are captured with a quality according to its range, but it doesn't perform well in backlight, although this is also what one would expect from a device of this price. It is not recommended to record with the light behind, but with front light. Indoors again we will notice a little more noise than we would like, although I repeat that the environment in this case, if it is a little darker than we are usually used to, so if I go out to a slightly brighter area improves the result, but there is still the presence of noise even with conditions that I would consider that are still not so low illumination, so in the evenings you will observe much more noise presence and low definition. So I really think that the front camera does not record at a high level, and possibly this is one of its weak points. In this front camera, if we will find fast camera but not slow motion, and you should also know that it has a dual recording mode, that if it is in full HD, and that is something very positive because it allows us to show both sides of the video both in the rear camera and with the front camera. This is a feature that few devices in the price range integrate, so it is remarkable. Although the zoom behavior is completely the same as we saw previously, that is, if you start recording with the ultra-wide camera, you must switch to the main camera if you want to zoom in more. Fortunately, if it lets you switch the view of the cameras, and if you start recording with the main camera, you are going to have a better performance in focus and zoom, so it is totally recommended. In fact, not only do we have picture-in-picture mode with a box that we can reposition to the camera, but we also have split-screen mode with exactly the same focus and zoom behavior. So for bloggers, this may become more attractive because I insist that in this price range, few devices integrate this feature. The operating system is Android 13 and it comes with MyUX, which is this little customization layer from Motorola. This device includes the promise of 1 year of software updates and 3 years of security patches, which is not the most advanced in the industry, but it is appreciated that at least they are clear about how many times it will update. It's also appreciated that it comes with factory updates, but it definitely won't be its strongest point. Motorola adds some options to its devices through the Moto app where gestures predominate. For starters, we have a new quick launch gesture with which you can double tap the back of the cell phone and you can quickly open some of your favorite applications. This gesture can certainly make things much easier for you. It not only serves to open applications but also for other tools such as taking a screenshot or returning to the main application. This gesture not only helps you to open applications but also other tools such as taking screenshots, recording the screen or returning to the main screen. You also have the traditional gestures of turning the device to open the camera, shaking it to turn the flashlight on or off. You can take screenshots by holding down with 3 fingers, or you can also turn it face down to activate the Do Not Disturb mode and a few other things. This Motorola generation also integrates a sidebar with which you can easily open some applications. Many of them will open in this floating format, although you can only open one application at a time in this window format. You should also know that both YouTube and Instagram are apps that do support this floating mode, and that's a rare thing. So it seems to me a good implementation of Motorola, although to improve it could let us minimize a little more applications, as the minimum size still seems to me considerably large. If you try to make a smaller window, it will turn into a bubble. It would also be nice if it would allow us to open more than one application in this format. Another added feature is Screen Attentive that will allow the device does not turn off while it detects that you are watching it, but something curious is that Motorola has removed the active screen function, and in this case, despite having an AMOLED screen, also does not offer us the always-on display feature that would allow us to display content such as the clock or some notifications even having the screen locked. But in this case, simply by tapping, it shows us a preview of the lock screen, but we cannot interact with notifications as we did some time ago. So this is a change from what we saw in past generations. I like the interaction with notifications, but I don't like the fact that it doesn't have the always-on display feature. In short, this device has a very simplified system, as all Motorola bets for a simple, stable and fluid experience. But in many occasions it still feels too simple, so if you are one of those users who want to have many options and many functions, possibly this is still not the option for you. It has an in-display fingerprint reader that works well, although not as fast as the capacitive readers that are outside the display. But again, here you're seeing how well it performs. It allows you up to 5 different registrations, and since it's inside the screen, it also allows you to change the animation style between 3 different options. But in addition to the optical fingerprint reader, it also has facial unlocking, although it is only in 2 dimensions, and that's why, as I always say, it is not recommended if your priority is security. Just use it for convenience. But from my point of view, it would be more comfortable to enable smart lock because here you can set up secure environments such as a specific location like your home or a speaker or watch so that while connected there or in that specific location, the device does not lock. As you will notice, the password manager is Google's and it automatically fills in without first verifying through your fingerprint. You can change this through the settings, and I think it will be ideal for you to do so to have a much more secure experience without so many vulnerabilities. This way, the next time you try to fill in the password, it will first ask for verification. In this generation of Motorola software, they also include the Moto Secure application, where you will find the secure folder that you can access with a different pattern than your lock screen or also through your fingerprint. And here you will find both applications and files, so you have a totally secure and private center. Within Moto Secure also comes an option for phishing detection in order to avoid being fooled by companies like Facebook or Google in order to steal your passwords. And since Motorola is part of the Lenovo family, they have also included ThinkShield, which is a layer of security at the hardware level, so you can also prevent various attacks. But not only that, Motorola also focuses on the family, so it includes the Family Space application. Through this application, you can create different spaces for different children so that you can lend them your cell phone with confidence that they are not going to access applications that they should not. So in this space, I have only the Asphalt app authorized. What I don't like, and that could be improved, is that it asks for permissions the first time you want to enter to enable all this, and it can really become a little uncomfortable for those who do not have the knowledge. But after giving all those permissions, it will finally let you enter the space where you can determine how long you want that session to last. And the child will have a quick widget where you can see how much time is left of your session, and obviously cannot access any other area of the system, application, or game. To exit this space, you must first verify through the fingerprint. So in each of these spaces, you determine the number of applications you want to include. Therefore, I really like that they incorporate this feature, although there are other manufacturers with even more advanced features that will enable the nightlight filter or even detect bad posture. But it is a breakthrough that Motorola is already starting to integrate this kind of features that we have been asking for a long time. The battery is 5000 milliamps like the vast majority of devices today, but performs slightly below average in my tests. So you can get about 4.5 hours of continuous use in a very intense way. Obviously, with non-continuous use and without demanding so much will perform much better, but on average if it is below what I would have liked. You have a traditional battery saving mode for day-to-day use that can extend the battery life a little bit more, but you don't have an extreme saving mode that could help you in some emergencies. The charger included in the box is a 33-watt charger, although the device actually supports 30-watt charging, which is also compatible with power delivery, so you could buy a charger compatible with this standard to use as well. It is a considerably fast charge, though not the fastest on the market. In 15 minutes, it recovered 34% of the energy, in 30 minutes 60%, and the full charge finished it in an hour and a quarter. In the settings, you will find an optimized charging option, so if you are one of those people who leave your cell phone charging all night, I recommend that you enable this option to take care of the battery life, because once you enable this option, it will learn your charging pattern and your routine to know the time you wake up and thus finish charging right then. I wish it also brought a charge lock mode at a certain percentage in case you are one of those users who need to have your phone plugged in constantly, but this device does not bring that option, only brings an overcharge protection, but it will activate after the device is plugged to the power for 3 days in a row, which I see unlikely to happen. Then, in summary, the battery experience is slightly below what I would like. The charging is something positive but still can improve through software options. Yes, it has support for 5G networks, which is a good thing because in past years we had seen that 5G devices sacrificed many things, but Motorola seems to have taken a step forward integrating 5G without losing the AMOLED screen and without losing other important features, only that through software the experience can become a little simple and you do not find an option to limit internet access of certain applications through your mobile data, then it can become a little more complicated to regulate the consumption of your data plan. It also has access to Wi-Fi 5 networks, and I think it is within what we could expect, offering us a standard download speed, still not the fastest on the market. Although, as you know, this will always depend on your internet connection. One good thing is that it does have NFC, so you can perfectly make contactless payments using Google Pay or also link to other devices by bringing the back of the cell phone close to them. Surprisingly, it also integrates FM radio, which is something I did not expect, although obviously you must connect the headphones to work as an antenna. It also has wireless projection only in this section. Only Chromecast devices will appear. If you want to connect to another monitor, you need to enter the Ready for option. So yes, it is capable of projecting your screen wirelessly, and the most impressive thing is that it does include all the Ready for features that Motorola previously reserved only for the Edge family. So you can use your device on an external monitor as a computer format with applications open in different windows, and if you connect a mouse and a wireless keyboard, you could have an advanced productivity experience. Without a doubt, this will be one of its strengths because most devices in this price range are only capable of projecting their screen in a simple way, but not in this advanced format. As you will have seen, it also has Android Auto and also includes all the sensors we could ask for, including accelerometer, geomagnetic field, sensor orientation, sensor gyroscope, light sensor, and also a physical proximity sensor, which is easily enabled. The experience therefore will be completely good, and it has a vibration motor on the x-axis, which is simple, but it is within what we could expect in this price range. The Motorola ecosystem could be considered a weak point because even though they do have some Motobots in their catalog, they don't really have a special interaction between the cell phone and the headphones. In fact, they don't have a watch or a tablet or anything like that. And even though they are part of the Lenovo family, we don't see a special interaction between a Motorola cell phone and a Lenovo laptop or anything like that either. In fact, it looks more like a Google cell phone because in many aspects it depends on this company. The cloud storage will be reserved through Google Drive or apps that you download later, and the control of the home devices will be through Google Home, where in fact you will also notice that it has a shortcut in the quick settings to access the controls of your connected devices. So I think Motorola should improve its ecosystem if it wants to attract more users. Let's go to our test of opening applications where we will find the Snapdragon processor 695, a processor that we have already tested in other devices and has given us a very good feeling, and really is very good to find it in this price range, also accompanied at 8GB of RAM, which is another good news because it is not something so common to see in devices of this price. 3.3 seconds it took on average to open each of these applications, which I consider something positive. Really going to notice that the experience is very good, and even thanks to those 8GB of RAM is likely to allow us to keep several applications open at the same time. And also, as you notice, the interaction within these applications can become good. It seems that it does not feel that it is stuck or that it gets very slow at times. Only the loading times in the content that is downloaded from the internet could become a little slower because it has no support for Wi-Fi Network 6. But as I had already anticipated, that is a feature that is generally reserved only for devices of a higher range. In general, if I could tell you that the team gives us a fairly smooth performance when using multiple applications at the same time, so there is nothing that I can complain, but on the contrary, in this price range is totally remarkable, this performance. Another remarkable thing is that the storage is 256GB. This is a capacity that is usually reserved only for the premium range, but it's great that from this price range, and we can have all this space available so it will not fill easily. Even if you download is quite heavy games and have many photos and many videos, also you can put a micro SD up to 1TB, then the space really is something very positive in this device. Let's now go to the next step. Very positive in this device. Let's now do the test exporting 4 clips together with a total duration of 1 minute recorded with this device in full HD to see how long it takes to do this process. Took about 37 seconds or so, and this confirms that it is an excellent device of the best options you'll find in this price range, and even if it becomes cheaper over time, will be an irresistible option. For games, Motorola adds an application with the same name where you have collected all this content. Even you can see the gameplays that you have recorded, and you can also configure specifically the performance you want to have each game individually if you want to give priority to a low battery consumption or want to give priority to high performance. You could also modify the screen resolution to benefit the performance, and you can even determine what refresh rate you want to go to the screen to optimize the battery. Can also improve the touch sensitivity if you enable this option, and you can avoid unwanted touches on the corners when holding your device. It also includes the acoustic lights feature that would allow you to somehow notice if the sound is coming from the left or the right when you are playing in silent mode. You can also prioritize the game traffic on the Wi-Fi connectivity, so it really offers very good options to customize your gaming experience. And once you open a game, you also have access to the Moto Game Time functions where you could block calls, block notifications, block unwanted gestures, and also take screenshots and record screenshots. From here, you can also manage other things that I had already shown you in the general settings, but something that it also includes is the option to open applications in a free format. From here, you can add your favorite applications with which you could access to answer messages quickly without the need to leave your game, so it is another of those very useful features. In Call of Duty, notice that by default we choose the high graphic quality at a high frame rate. Also, the curious thing here is that the very high quality is also available. Although if we choose the maximum frame rate, the graphic quality is lowered to the high format, nothing else. With the very high quality setting, it is curious that if it allows us to enable all the special effects simultaneously, something that is totally surprising. In fact, it also has the super resolution mode available. It is also curious that if we choose the maximum frame rate, even though the graphic quality drops slightly, it keeps all the effects enabled, so we will run the test with this setting. Really, the experience was completely good. There is nothing to complain about, but on the contrary, just point out that this is a device too good to play without getting to sacrifice other things, as it is likely that you can find some devices with an even more powerful processor or something like that, but it is also likely to be of brands that can get to cut in other aspects, but in this case it looks a well-balanced device that keeps you a good gaming experience also without getting too hot. In Legends, we changed the automatic setting to high, although for the price we should have set it to medium, but due to the good performance in the last test, we decided to give it a more extreme test at 60 frames per second. To give you a reference, these settings are normally selected when the phone costs between 10,000 or 12,000 Mexican pesos, but in this case the truth is that it still gave us an excellent experience with this. Confirms that despite not being such an expensive device, and gives us a very good gaming experience with good graphics, good reflections, good fluidity, and more stabilization is not so high because the game started it in 120 frames per second, but after some time lowered it to 60 frames per second. So in the numbering does not seem to have a good stability, but in reality we could say that if you had 100% stability, or at least something very close to 100% really, the experience in these contents will be totally positive in this team, because despite being a more complex content, did not become overheated in excess. In the SpongeBob game, this device defaults to the high setting with high quality at 60 frames per second, so we leave it at that setting. Does not have a perfect performance because it is not a high-end device, but if it is very close to be, really gives us a very good fluid experience with good graphics, so there is nothing we can reproach for this price. I insist that it is the best option to play if you do not want to sacrifice other aspects. In Genshin Impact by default, we have the graphics selected in low for the test. We raise them up to medium, and we also raise them to 60 frames per second to have a little more complex test. And again, we were surprised for good. The good performance that had it is true that its average frames per second is not exaggeratedly high, but with 30 frames per second on average already gives you a feeling of considerably fluid gameplay. Also consider that this is one of the heaviest games we test normally, and therefore it stands out that this device without a doubt that gives us a good experience. Obviously, if we want an even more fluid rate, is likely that you should lower the graphics quality, but I must tell you that definitely this device is a fully recommended option if you want to play, as even in this content that is the heaviest of those we tested, we did not see any serious heating. So for the moment, this has been all for this video. I hope you liked this content. If so, you know you can indicate it, and we'll see you next time.